you to work or something may go up. All your different liabilities may go up because now you've moved into a house. And remember, your first 5 months you spend more on a house than you do in the next 5 years. Because you're either buying new furniture, this, new that. Okay? You have to look at the different facets. Now, as I see, you guys are all first-time home buyers, correct? All right. Does anybody know the difference between a house and a home?
Our home, we each our own, our house.
Almost right in a nutshell. Okay? A guy buys a house, a female buys a home. All right? Because no matter what happens, as I said, my mistakes, when I buy a house, if you go into my house, I had a roommate walk in once, he said, the house is cold. It's a cold house. And I said, I have a heat pump. So it never gets hot. And, you know, never gets hot. Now it's cold, you have no pictures on the wall, no nothing. And I said, well, I will buy pictures tomorrow. He says, no matter what you do, you will not make this a home. And it was the truth. Okay? Because you need that the feminine touch to come in. And an example I use is I was doing a loan for a couple. The realtor wanted them to use another mortgage company. So she was anti-me. And she was trying to get me, you know, to make a mistake. She's sitting there rattling away and she says, tell Kenny this is a great house to buy. It's perfect. It's valued right, and they're leaving the window treatments for them. It's brand new carpeting and freshly painted. This is what he wants. And I said, and now does anybody know what the difference between window treatments and curtains are? What's the difference between a window treatment and curtains? Anybody else? Difference is $10,000. That's all it is in a nutshell. Okay? Here it is. There's the guy saying that. And I looked at the realtor and I said, Kenny's interested in 3 things. Where's the TV go? Where's the couch go? Where's the clicker go? And she was shocked. Okay? And any male here can go right there with it. Can think about that. Went to the wife. Said, this is what she's saying to me. Well, she's saying there's new window treatments, there's new carpets, there's new this. The lady looked at me and said, Kenny's interested in 3 things in the house. Where the TV goes, where the couch goes, and where the clicker goes. That's it. Okay? So, that's the difference between a house and a home. My time is cut. Does anybody have any questions? No? Everybody knows everything now? You have nothing to fear? Okay. I am done. You're up now, young lady. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Catherine Hall, and she's the owner of Value Home Inspections. So she's going to be going over what she does as an inspector for you. Because when you hire your realtor, they're working for you, or they should be. And the same thing with the inspector. The inspector is working for you, not the seller. So Catherine is going to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about home inspections.
Good afternoon. Actually, I'm going to talk more about everything you need to know about how to select a home, so that when you get to having the home inspection, it is not a nightmare where you walk out crying. Okay. What I want to talk about is the process of becoming a home buyer from the perspective of selecting a home. And the title of my presentation is the top 10 things to do when choosing your next home, or how not to get caught in the money pit. How many of you remember that movie, The Money Pit, with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long? Remember when they bought that home and the tub fell through the floor and the whole staircase fell down? That's what we don't want to have happen to you. Because what they did that was totally wrong was that when they purchased that property, they only went into it one time, and they made a buying decision based upon emotional factors. So what we want to do is we want to take the home buying and the home selection process out of the mode of the emotions and into the mode of the intellect. So now, as I go through the presentation today, inside those bags that I gave you are white cards. If you fill out that card with your name, your email address, and your phone number, a couple of things will happen. When I collect those cards today, I will send you a copy of all of the PowerPoint slides today. so you don't have to sit here scribbling furiously as I go through everything. And secondly, we're going to be having a series of free teleseminars over the next couple of months, starting in June, where you'll be able to get one-on-one information and have one-on-one access to various professionals, lenders, agents, insurance companies, title companies, and also some legislators who are going to be getting involved with the helping people answer questions about the home buying process as it relates to our area. So please put that information down, and then you can get that information as we go through. The first thing you need to do, and the nice thing about the fact that I come in last, is the fact that you've already had a conversation with a real estate agent last week, correct? This week, today? Who was the agent that you spoke to today?
Jamie Frosco.
Okay, now, Jamie is an agent who is experienced with this program, and that's the most important thing you need to do. You need to carefully pick the real estate professional who you work with. The real estate agent is the person you're going to spend the most amount of time with in this process. Second to that person is your housing counselor. Third in the timeline is your lender. Fourth is your home inspector. And then fifth is the title company. You only see the title company one time, and that's at the end of closing. The agent, you're going to be seeing that person frequently. You're going to be talking to them constantly. So the most important thing is that you need to carefully choose the person who represents you as your real estate professional. You want to make sure you use someone who is experienced in the area. And by experienced, I mean someone who is comfortable working with you in the location you're looking to work in. So for example, you may not want to work with an agent whose office is based out of Elkins Park if you're buying down here in Delaware County, and vice versa, because they may not be able to have that exposure to the information you need about this specific area. You want to see to that that agent is caring and understanding. You want someone who really appreciates where you're coming from and is understanding what you're trying to accomplish with the home buying process. You want to make sure that the agent that you're working with is readily accessible. This is very important at this point because of the changes in the economic climate right now, a lot of real estate agents who were very successful making real estate their sole total income are now having to supplement their real estate income with other jobs. You need to find out, is the agent that you're working with a full-time agent or are they a part-time agent? Are they having to supplement with another income source which might reduce their accessibility to you? Now, is there anything wrong working with an agent who has another full-time or has another job? Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with it. But you want to know that before you start the process. Because if you start the process and you find out that agent that you're working with has a job that makes them unavailable on Saturdays, and Saturdays is the only day that you have available to deal with this process, that could cause a conflict, can't you see? Okay, so find that information out early. You want to make sure that that agent is knowledgeable, especially about these programs that we're going through here. And understanding about the differences and understanding all the hoops that you'll have to jump through, the seller will have to jump through, and the home will have to jump through for this program. So that's very important. And you want someone who is excited about your goals, who really gets jazzed in working with first-time home buyers. There's several different types of real estate agents. There are agents who specialize working with the investor, and the investor is the person who has no emotional connection to that property. They are buying that building or property or home strictly based upon the numbers. And if the numbers don't work, we're not doing the deal, and they're happy moving on to some other property. That investor is not having an emotional connection to the building. The second type of home buyer that agents will sometimes develop an expertise working with is the trade-up buyer. A trade-up buyer is a person who has already owned one or more homes in their history and basically is moving up or moving down, if they're downsizing, to another home. This is someone who has experience with the home buying process, doesn't have a whole lot of questions, and just basically needs someone who can help with the transactions. That's an easy person to work with. And then there's you, the first-time home buyer. You are unique. This is your first time going through this. It's going to be harder for you. There are a lot of things that you have to answer to when you're doing this process, and you want an agent who is really excited about working with you. You don't want an agent who is not responsive or seems to be irritated or frustrated with your questions, doesn't seem to have time for you. That's not the person you want to work with. You need to interview several agents before you make a selection on who will represent you. Now, you say to yourself, how do I find an agent? Well, you had the one agent here that came to talk to you today. That's a perfect place to start. Set up an appointment to sit down and talk to him. Ask him about who he is. Find out how he mixes with you on a personal basis. Is there a chemistry that would make you two work well together? Then another way to find potential resources of good qualified agents is you want to call the real estate broker of an office near to where you're looking to buy. So if you're looking to buy up here in the Woodland area, then you want to call an agent, maybe on Main Street in Woodland, and ask to speak to the broker of record. That's the agent who owns the office. And the broker of record in a real estate agency gets a piece of the commission of every agent who sells or helps a buyer buy a home in his office. So now, you're going to call up that broker and you're going to say, hello, my name is Jane. I'm a first-time home buyer looking to buy in your area, and I'd like to know the names of your agents that you think I should work with out of your office. Now, when you're asking for references of names for agents, first of all, that broker might be an actually practicing agent himself, in which case he's going to say, I'd love to represent you. I'll be happy to represent you. Remember, you're going to be interviewing him. So you say, great, I'd love to sit down and talk with you. But in addition to you, who else can I talk to in your office who might be able to represent me so I can make a good choice before I sign up to do any activities? So you're going to get names of agents in his office, right? Now let me ask you this. When that broker gives you several names of agents in his office, is he going to give you the name of the agent who hasn't sold a piece of real estate in the past 3 months? Is he going to give you the name of the agent who's had 5 complaints in the past 4 weeks? Anybody awake? What's he going to give you? His best and brightest. Why? Because he makes a paycheck when they make a paycheck on helping you get into a home. So when you make that call to contact that agent, you drop his name. Hi, I was referred to you by John Broker. I'd like to discuss possibly having you represent me. And if you have to leave a voice message, when they check their messages, is your phone call going to be the last one that agent returns? No. It's going to be the what? Why? You dropped the boss's name, exactly. They don't know that you just called him out of the blue. You could be his second cousin once removed. The important thing is you said his name. And the important thing is if you're not satisfied with the reaction you get from that agent, where are you going to go? Right back to him. Okay? So, how many here already have looked at properties? How many here already have an agent that they are working with? Okay? Those of you who had raised your hand and said they looked at properties, I'm glad to see that all of you said you have an agent that you're working with. Because, here's the catch. You need to pick your real estate agent before you look at any properties. Because the way the laws in the state of Pennsylvania operate is this. If you look at a property with a real estate agent, and you decide that you plan to purchase that property, that agent who showed you that home is the one you are stuck with for the entire transaction. Even if you find out that you don't like that person, you can't change, you're stuck with that agent. So the worst thing to do is to see a house on a block that you're interested in buying and call the number on the sign on the lawn. Who is the name of the person who's on that sign on the lawn? The seller's agent. Now you need to understand, that agent will be happy to talk to you. He'll be as sweet as pie. He will make an appointment to meet you at the home. He will take you through that property, and he will show you everything about that home. But then, if you find yourself hiring or retaining a buyer's agent after the fact, and you go back to purchasing that original home you saw with the seller's agent, that buyer's agent is squeezed out of the transaction. He will get no compensation. So, pick your agent first. Then pick properties. You'll also find nowadays that a real estate agent may ask you to sign a broker's agreement. A broker's agreement is a document where you are telling that agent that you will allow them to represent you exclusively, and during that time you will not be seeking any other real estate support. Now, when you hire a real estate agent to represent you, or you ask that agent to represent you, you need to start thinking of yourself from this point forward as employers. And that real estate agent is your employee. Now, when you started working at your current job or any job that you've had, did you get a 6-month guarantee of employment? No. What did you get? You got a 90-day probation. Okay? So now, why would you sign a contract that says you're going to be stuck working with someone for 6 months when you have no track record on what their experience or ability is to serve you, right? So, what I would suggest that you do is this. Tell that agent that you'll be happy to sign the broker's agreement. However, you want to X out that phrase 6 months and put in 90 days. And you tell the agent, I'm sure at the end of 90 days, if you haven't been able to find me a home, it won't be because you haven't tried successfully, and I'll be happy to sign you for another 90 days, right? But if that agent seems to be all bent out of shape because you're not willing to give them 6 months of your life, what would you think you might need to do? Find another agent. Because they should be confident enough in their experience and abilities to be only locked into 90 days, good or good. Right? Does that make sense to you? So, you might not find out that this is not the agent for you, but here you're stuck with them for 6 months. So please consider carefully before signing a broker's agreement, and don't be afraid to change the terms to terms that meet your best needs. Okay? Next, you want to visit several homes before you place an offer on any property. You don't want to go into the very first home you see, the very first time you see it, and say this. You walk into the front door, this is great, I can't wait to move in. I'm going to put my big screen over here, I'm going to put my sofa over there, I'm going to paint that room purple. No. I get the impression that this might have been something that experienced in your past. Or another phrase I might say, my grandfather would say, can I get a witness? So, we have to remove ourselves from the emotions and put this in the role of the intellect. We're not here making an emotional connection, we're making a buying decision. So how do you do that? How do you change from being the emotional buyer to the intelligent buyer? One, you want to visit the home that you're looking to purchase several times before you make an offer. You don't walk in the first day and you don't make an offer the first time you see the home. When do you go? You go either during or right after what we had yesterday. Heavy rain. You see so much in a heavy rain that you don't see in a lovely, dry, sunny day. You might see gutters that are totally inadequate with water pouring straight down into the front of the house. That's what happened on the inspection I did yesterday. Found out that there was the gutter was leaking totally in the front, onto the front porch. It was seeping down in a crack in the front porch, and when we went to the basement, the whole front basement wall looked like a waterfall. And there's insulation on that wall, which has now been damaged, will have to be removed because wet insulation will lead to mold. Okay? So you want to visit that property during or right after a heavy rain. You also want to visit that property around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a school day. Wouldn't it be nice to know who hangs out on the corners when Johnny comes marching home? Especially if Johnny comes home alone. You're not going to be able to change the composition of that neighborhood when you buy that property. So you need to make sure that the composition is what you want before you buy. Okay? Another time you want to visit that property is you want to visit that home around 6 o'clock at night on a work night. Especially if there's no off-street parking for your vehicle. In other words, if there's no driveway or garage for you to put your car and you're having to park on the front of the street, you might not know that each one of the houses on that block right now have 10 cars. And that there's no room for you to park your one little car on your own street. And there is no rule in law in Pennsylvania that says that you are entitled to that piece of asphalt in front of your front door. You own the concrete, you do not own the street. So find out what the composition is like before you buy it. You want to visit that property and you want to check out the neighborhood and you want to go visit the police precinct nearest to the home you're about to buy. Let me ask you this. How many here today have visited the police precinct nearest to your present home voluntarily? They didn't get that. I'll ask it again another way. How many of you have visited the police precinct nearest to your home involuntarily? They're not getting it. Now, I want to know. That's a little overshare. So, in other words, go visit the desk sergeant. Ask what's going on in the neighborhood. Is there any planned road construction that will tie up that street for the next 7 years? Has anybody driven down 57th and Market? I don't know what you're driving, a Jetson mobile, because that thing's been blocked off for what, 5 years now? 3 years, yeah. Can you imagine what the value of those properties is done? Straight down, okay? Find out, is there a block captain? Is there a neighborhood watch? Who are the head of these organizations if they exist? Get those names and call those people. These are things that will help verify the quality of that development, of that neighborhood. And one of the best things you need to do is you want to visit that property, at least sit out in front of your car, don't knock on any doors and bother people, but you want to sit in your car in front of that house about 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night. Because I don't know about you, but bright lights and sirens do not lull me to sleep. And if this is a busy, active street, it may or may not be the one you want to move on to. You know what I'm talking about, the little after-hours place on the corner that is dead silent on Wednesday afternoon. The joint's jumping Saturday night, and you didn't know about it, and you bought the house. That creates a situation known as buyer's remorse. And that's the worst thing to have, because it's worse to get out of a house that you can't stand being in than it is to be in a house than before you can get into that house. So take the time to get information about the composition of the neighborhood, the community, the environment, the schools, before you buy into that area. You want to ask the seller to provide you with copies of utility bills and any maintenance contracts that exist on the properties. If it has high utility bills, it might be an indication of problems with many of the major systems. It could be an indication of a problem with a heating system if the electric or heating bill is high. It could be an indication of drafty windows that are letting the heat just escape right outside the house. A high water bill could be an indication of a leak hidden somewhere behind a wall or under the floor, under the ground, which has caused a very expensive repair cost. So get copies of these utility bills. Now you might find that a seller may say, oh, I shred my bills for security purposes as soon as I pay them, so I don't have copies of the utility bills. Okay, that's fine. You can call PICO and get a copy of the transcript for the last 6 months of usage. I'll wait. Okay, she's going to have trouble doing this. I just see that right now. Now, what does that mean? You have to be more